right, Stephen Perkins, I am excited to talk to you about Dead Mom Card. I saw the
Great.
movie. I loved it. I mean, it's such an interesting story, and it's about power struggle, but yet there's hijinks and chaos mixed into everything. And all it was. I just everything just went along smoothly, and I really enjoyed this movie.
Thanks. I appreciate hearing that. The intent was certainly to um, hit funny bones and get people laughing at points, but also to get people thinking. And I think there's moments where you laugh and there's moments where you cry, and sometimes when they come together in one thing, it's more interesting. It's more layered.
Yeah, exactly. So, how did the idea for the film come about? Like, how did it all begin?
Depends how far you want to go back. So the very, very beginning,
Mhm.
uh, um, my mother died when I was very young. I was 16. And um, going through a funeral when you're in that teenage adolescent mode, you learn to develop very quickly sort of a bullshit detector. And you go, yeah, I don't really believe this person who's saying, oh, if you ever need anything, and it for me, it became this um, not only a sort of seize the day, because it brings a sort of urgency to your own life, but also a sort of cynicism about other people and how sincere they were. And so fast forward 30 years, and I have a grown daughter who's married, and her husband had a mom who was living at home with them, and she was getting ill, and she was becoming very crotchety, very difficult. And I was watching it kind of going, oh my God, that's got to be hard. Because my mom was kind of the opposite. My mom was, as she was getting sicker and sicker, she would be like, are you okay? Can I get you something? Can I have the nurse bring you, something to drink? Um, but my son in law's mom was difficult. And when she died, I flew to Chicago for this service, and um, afterwards, I took my son-in-law out for Mexican food. You should always have a taco after a funeral.
Oh yeah.
So we went to have tacos and margaritas, and we're sitting and talking about this idea of condolences and how people sort of put things out there. And the conversation got more and more absurd. And my son-in-law said, well, what if, when somebody says, well, if there's ever anything I can do for you, if you said, well, yeah, I'd like tickets to see the Bulls play on Saturday. And we just got a big laugh out of it. And so my son-in-law, Eddie, said, you should call it Dead Mom Card and write a script like that. And it took 5 years, 6 years before it actually came to pass. But I did start working on a script. I did start playing with ideas. I thought I was ready to go as COVID was kind of shutting down the world. I was actually having workshops with actors at that point with a script that I thought, oh, this is pretty close and we could go with it. But at that point, everything screeched to a halt. And I said, well, what could I do to simplify, keep the things that matter to me, and not lose those things? And so I worked a lot on rewriting and kind of streamlining the story and the characters and how I could do it and keep everybody healthy and safe, which was a big deal.
That's great. And I gotta say the cast in this was great, especially the main three characters in Anne, Jason, and Raymond. I mean, Gleason Sorensen, Chris Burnett, and Lester Neal were great. And what I really liked was it was diverse, where Anne is the white woman, Chris Burnett's the black guy, and then you have Lester's character who is biracial, and on top of that, he's LGBTQ. I
Yeah.
like that that was brought together. What was it like working with the three of them?
So it was my first time with all three of them. Very interestingly, Lisa was someone who was brought to my attention. Someone said, "Oh, you should meet Lisa." And I met Lisa, and she did something that no actor has ever done with me. She said, "Can I read the script in advance before our first meeting?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure." Most people honestly want to do kind of the minimum.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, here's somebody who wants to do the maximum. That's my kind of person. And she showed up for our first meeting and she said, "This character is me." And I totally identify with her. I get in my head sometimes. I sometimes feel like I have no life outside of work. She just went on about why this was her as a person, and I thought I was kind of blown away, honestly. I had seen a little bit of her work, and I was like, "Oh, she's good. I like her." Um, but then getting a chance to dig in with her, now I hope I work with her till I die. Honestly, like that's the kind of bond that we built during that time. Um, Interestingly, Lester also came to me and said, when I first met him and he had read the script and we talked, he said, I don't believe you wrote these words. You're a straight man and you wrote this character. You wrote things that I have actually said out loud."
Oh, wow.
And I went, "Okay, thank you. That's a the ultimate compliment for a writer, is to inhabit another character." And um, my brother's gay and is married, and so it's not a universe that I'm unfamiliar with.
Right.
But I was really happy that he felt like I represented um, his perspective well.
That's great. What about Chris? I mean, Chris was really good. I liked his role because he was, very bitter towards most of it for the fact that he should have gotten the business.
Yeah,
And, he showed this resentment towards Anne, especially, and, because he felt like he lost it because of his skin color, basically. And
right. That character, um, when I was writing that character, I spent a lot of time because I did not want to misrepresent again, much like I did when I wrote the character of Raymond. I wanted to have a full-bodied, layered character, not just, here's a character, but I wanted them to have layers. And so I did a lot of research about racism specifically in Portland, and how significant portions of the city were redlined and defined as these are the areas where it's okay for Blacks to live. These are the areas where it's okay for Chinese to live. This is the Mexican area, and it was so um, profoundly disturbing to read that. I was like, I need to get a character who's just pissed off about this,
right.
and that was what I tried to capture with the character of Jason, and the idea that um, somewhere along the line I've not been treated fairly, and
Right.
that's repeated throughout my life. So
Yeah, and I think that's great. You mentioned the whole layers thing, and that's I think that's a wonderful thing, especially with Raymond's character, because we kind of get the stereotype when we see him, as he's getting ready for work. He shows
Yeah.
that bit of stereotype for LGBTQ depiction in cinema. But then as the film progresses, we learn more about him and the fact that he feels like, since Anne's taken over, he's not getting paid enough. And,
Yeah.
why is he there? Like he's questioning why he's there if he's not getting what he deserves in a way, but I also felt at the same time, he's like the Switzerland between Anne and Jason, where, Anne's like, I'm going to just run the business, but yet she has that sense of guilt that she got the business. That's what I loved about her character. Like, she's like, I got this given to me. I'm going to go for it. But yet I feel bad because, and in some ways she felt Jason should have gotten it, or they could have worked together as equal partners in a way. But
Yeah, I think that's a thing that hopefully more people start thinking about, as in, what is it that I've been handed? What's been given to me? I didn't necessarily ask for this skin color. I didn't ask for this name. I didn't ask for, my lot in life, if you will.
mhm,
But because of that, I'm socioeconomically put in a certain spot. Where I go up or down is we like to think of that as being an individual thing. Personally, I think it's a result of capitalism and racism and power, whether you move up or move down. But on some level, you're kind of, we don't like to say it in the United States, but there's a caste system, and there are people who are definitely lower class and working class, and there are definitely people who are upper class, and never the two shall meet, sort of thing. And what I wanted to do was at least tell a story where somebody was saying, hey, what about me?
right.
And how is this fair?
Yeah.
And to have the character of Anne be someone who was handed something that she didn't necessarily know that she was going to get or want, but she just takes it. It's an automatic thing. Somebody gives you a flower, you take it. And how that could not necessarily be a good thing.
Right. And what I also liked was, despite, while the main plot involves the three of them in this little power struggle, I do like the subplots as well, especially the two brothers. One of them's clearly has this crush on Anne, and the other brother keeps egging him on to, like, do something, say something,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
tell him how you feel. And then you got the one couple who's looking for the green funeral, which up until this movie, I never even heard of such a thing. So I felt like as Anne is learning about it, I'm learning about it as well, and that's what I feel is vital. And then of course you have the one other couple who are like, well, our mother was buried in the nude and we like our dad to be the same way. That I was laughing so hard at that. That was
Not
hysterical.
good. So that, in fact, is my storytelling, but it's me taking two or three stories I've heard and smashing them together. Um, Part of the way this story unfolded, to be quite honest, was it started with me taking the perspective of the son. Yeah, I'm a son whose mother died. I'm like, okay, I'm going to write from my perspective, right? Um, but the more I thought about it, I thought I want to get out of me and I want to make it another character. And so, oddly enough, um, I don't remember the exact timing, but an old friend of mine from high school, someone I'd had a date with once, and I always liked her, and we'd kind of lost touch. And 30 years later, I reconnect with her, and we're talking, and she says, "Yeah, I'm a funeral director." And I was like, "Cool, tell me about that. What's that like?" And so we started. Um, I don't remember if I was actually. I think I'd already written a first draft of the script with Joe McClatchy as the main character. And I started talking with this friend, and the things she was saying were so profound to me. The idea of a woman being in charge, how difficult that was with the misogyny, the sort of casual misogyny of the men that she worked with.
Mhm.
You know, it was always assumed that she would be the one vacuuming and cleaning up, and how she was treated in ways that were terrible, I thought.
Mhm.
And that, I thought that was fascinating. I wanted to know more. And so we she's in the Midwest and I'm in Portland, Oregon. So we started this email correspondence, and um, she started telling me stories, and I would ask her things like, so tell me something weird that happened, you know, at work. And she would go on about these different things. And one of them was this idea of the fluids that are put, the embalming fluids, if they're improperly used, can cause somebody to turn green. And she actually, when I showed her the finished film, her thing was, it's not green enough. It's actually it's more extreme than that. And I was like, okay, but actually, we shot in an actual funeral home. Fortunately, we had the cooperation of a wonderful guy here in Portland who helps smooth the way for us. And he was on set with us most of the time. And so he's the one who said, oh, you know, that's about what it would be. But my friend who'd originally told me the story was saying, no, it's more like bright green.
Kind of like the Hulk.
And at that, yeah, kind of like the Hulk. But at that point, it was already done, and I was like, okay, I think we get the point anyway.
Yeah, that scene was actually really funny. I was laughing at that too. I was like, what do we do with this green, white, green? I don't even know what color this guy is. I mean, that was really funny.
I'm glad you liked it.
So and I do like the fact, I mean, not to spoil anything, I like the way the film ended because everything's smoothed out, and then, you know, we get to see a lot more than that, and more, it's more deeper. And, you know, I actually, like you mentioned, you know, you want to come up with characters that people can relate to. I mean, I started feeling for these characters by the end
Oh,
of the film.
that's
Like,
nice.
I felt like, you know, this was like so realistic in a way, like so human. You know, they're not just caricatures of themselves. They're real people. Even though they're actors, they felt like they were real people.
That's super important to me. I'm glad to hear it, first of all. But for me, um, the best stories always start with a good character. And um, if you start with somebody you care about, um, and you're willing to go on a journey with them, then you're in for 2 hours. You know, you're there. If you can't relate to a character for whatever reason, and you put up a barrier, then you're like, I'm out. You know, I'll hit stop. And so for me, starting with the character is always the place to begin.
So
You
how
know,
long? Yeah. So how?
I know there are some people who like start with big themes,
Yeah.
and um, I can imagine that someone could watch Dead Mom Card and think, oh, you started with this idea of racism, when in fact that's not what I started with. I started with the idea of a person in this position and how they're dealing with these things. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, that would evolve into that would eventually evolve into, you know, the theories of why they were given the job and whatnot.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how long did shooting take, and were there any like issues that you faced during production, considering this is like an indie film and everything?
As with anything, there's always things that come up. We um, I'm going to flex here for a minute. Anybody who makes films, we shot 120 pages in 12 days.
Wow.
So we were shooting at a very fast clip of almost 10 pages a day. That meant making compromises for some things. But there were other things that I felt like I was still able to get what I wanted. I'm stubborn that way. I don't move on till I get what I want. And then we were able to put it together fairly quickly afterwards, but the shoot itself was, thanks to cooperation of this funeral home in Portland and the person who was our point of contact, right before we were ready to shoot, like we shot late September, early September, he had a surgery, our advisor, our funeral advisor. And when he returned to work, he said, "Oh, Steve, we're having so many COVID deaths. I'm concerned about the week we've scheduled for you guys to shoot." And I kind of was like, "Oh my God, this is be the worst if, you know, there's too many people dying that we're going to get kicked out, and we would just have, it would have shut us down completely." Well, so we started on a Monday, and our plan was to shoot through Saturday, I think, as we did. And whenever there was, our agreement was, if anything came up, we stopped and we got out of the way, and we took everything out of the chapel or wherever we were, and we cleared the way for their business. We were there for a week, and we had to move about an hour.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, which
That
all
was great.
facts considered was amazing.
Yeah.
We were like, "Thank you, we'll take that." It was touch and go, because we thought, "Oh man, if we get shut down, we're not going to be able to afford extra days or to pay people more, or, you know, get another location." So they were awesome. And we actually were able to shoot in an embalming room, which was kind of amazing. For a low budget feature, being able to walk into a location is the best. You know, I've shot on sets before, and it's cool to be able to float a wall, and you go, "Oh, we can put the camera over here and over here." You know, that's cool and it's fun, but it's kind of limiting and costly in other ways, and you sacrifice authenticity. So we were in an actual funeral home with all the stuff that comes with that, and when push came to shove, we were actually able to use the embalming room.
Oh man, that's so awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, because yeah, I mean, I've talked to other indie film directors, maybe like, well, we had this one location all set, and then at the last second, just as they're getting ready to shoot, like the day before, after, like, we lost the location, so we have to, like, they have to scramble around and find another one in like such short notice. But I think literally you got blessed with this one.
Yeah,
Ironically, considering it's a funeral home of all things.
for sure, for sure. And the that does not escape me. We got really lucky, and I feel like in my approach is, you have to work really hard and you have to be lucky, and you need both. And if you don't have both, one without the other doesn't quite get you there. And we were incredibly lucky, and we worked very hard, but we got super lucky.
Well, that's awesome. And I gotta say, this is a great movie, and you know, I hope people are gonna get to see this one. I know it's on Amazon Prime right now, I believe. That's where
Yes,
it is.
sir.
So yeah,
So I'm curious, what did you think about the music?
oh, it fit perfectly. I mean, you know, you had these different types of you had the somber with the right moments, and then you had, some of the hijinks ones that I don't know, it just meshed really well, I thought.
Thanks. That's good to hear. The music is an important part of it for me. The there's a mix. Part of what was important for me for this production was to be a local production. A lot of people from LA come to Portland, use Portland as a scene, as a backdrop, and hire a couple people on a big shoot. And then they go back to LA and they do their thing. And then that happens up here with some frequency. So I was like, so what if we do a production that is as much Portland as we can? Subject matter, people, cast, crew, money, music, everything, as much as we can. And so that was kind of my goal. Was a lot of people talk about a local filmmaking scene or supporting local artists or whatever. And I was like, let's just do that. Let's do that to the nth degree. And we'll find out who walks the walk.
Awesome. Well, I gotta say, this was a great movie altogether. And yeah, I totally agree. The fact that you use a local crew is even more important. And if people get to see this movie, it'll gain some traction for the area of Portland being, an able-bodied film. It could be a film capital, the way things are gonna
Yeah.
go.
And that's the thing, is that because there are so many artists drawn here, there's a very significant community of artists and creative people here in town. How to get them financially supported, how to get them supported through viewers and sponsorship and things like that. That's like the next level. And I think hopefully with things like this humble, ambitious project, that we push that envelope a little bit more, and people realize, okay, there's a lot of talent here in town. There's, other than, like, I think there's only 2 actors out of the 22 who are not from Portland.
Oh, wow.
So that's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
the music, there were several musicians who I had known from when I lived in New York, and people I'd met along the way, that I was like, oh, this is just the perfect music. If I can get this, I'll use this instead. So, for example, a longtime friend and collaborator of mine, Brian Mitchell, he at this point plays with everybody, from Bob Dylan to Bruce Springsteen to, he played with Lee Van Helm for 7 years. Anyway, so Brian is a friend of mine and a frequent collaborator, and I was like, I need something for this funeral home scene, and do you think you can come up with something? And he plays a lot with this guy named Clark Gayton, and Clark has played with Sting and toured with Springsteen and other people, and is a horn player. And so Brian and Clark have a band that they call Fat Boy Canooch. And I was like, I'm going to write that into the script and have you guys do a song for this funeral scene. And so people would read the script and would be like, what is that? What's Fat Boy Canooch? Well, it's his band. And so when we shot it, it was really easy because the actors, I was telling them the backstory of Brian and Clark and their music, but their strategy, Brian's strategy was, and Clark's was, we play instruments that nobody else likes, the accordion and the tuba. And they saw some survey, like in Musician Magazine or something, like the instruments people hate the most are the accordion and the tuba. And so they're like, we're going to make a band of those two, the worst instruments that people hate. And so they started recording as Fat Boy Canuch. And they did the song that we put in the funeral home and made reference to them. But I still love that it's this quirky thing.
That's awesome. So with that said, since Dead Mom Carter is already out on Amazon Prime, what's next for you that you can talk about? Are you working on any more scripts, any new stuff?
Yeah, in fact, I've begun work on a script about jealousy, and it, as I mentioned earlier, the idea of starting with a character is where I always start.
Mhm.
So fortunately, I had written a rough script some time ago, and I showed it to Lisa Sorensen after we finished Dead Mom Card, and I asked her, do you think this is any good? Are you interested? And she said, oh, hell yeah, let's do this. And it's basically a character who is having an affair and is at this crossroads of ending the affair, wanting to remain in a relationship, deciding to end her job, walking away from different stresses in her life. So the story is at this point folding in a lot of my interest about relationships, but also so that's kind of the surface layer, is the relationships, jealousy piece. But underneath is all this subtext of the political turmoil that's going on in this country between liberals and conservatives, and how those two are just forces that just keep butting heads. So the idea is that there's a party at the main character's house, and it's a work party. So it's people that Lisa works with, and she's the boss. So she's invited all these people to her house. And at the party are work people she works with every day and knows in a certain context, but she doesn't know their plus ones. She doesn't know their spouses, their partners, their boyfriends, girlfriends. And what's uncovered during the course of the evening is different flirtations and different misbehaviors that happen during the course of the evening. I think it will be very much like a French bedroom farce, where somebody walks around a corner and there's two people making out, and they're shocked to see it, and the door slams and you follow something else, and it's going to be pretty rapidly paced.
Mhm.
But it's coming together.
Oh wow. Well, I'll definitely have to look out for that one once it's all said and done. I would definitely love to see something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, the title is The Secret Life of Plants, and the one of the big issues is going to be finding an appropriate house to where the party is hosted. And one of the things that's written in the script as it is now is that there's somebody has a green thumb, and it's the main character's partner who is the one with the green thumb. And so they are responsible for all the plants thriving, but they also are privy to kind of the secrets of what are going on.
Awesome. Well, Dead Mom Card is now on Amazon Prime. I'm going to tell everyone this. They need to see this movie. It's a great film.
Thanks.
It's not just a quirky dark comedy. It's so multi-layered, as you said. Great characters, a great story with some great subplots mixed in. And Steve, man, I gotta thank you again for taking the time to talk about this movie. And I can't wait to see The Secret Life of Plants once that's all wrapped up and said and done as well.
Well, I really appreciate your enthusiasm and your follow through with this. finding people for a quirky, low budget project is always tricky. So anything that you do to boost it is greatly appreciated.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again, everyone, and you all have a great day.
Okay, thanks.